We continue now at the top of Daf Yud Beis Amud Aleph and Meseches Moed Kattan. This is Moed Kattan Daf 12a. The Gemara says, Amar Shmuel. Shmuel says, Mekavle kibolas b'soch tchum. If people are contracted workers within the tchum, Asr, it's Asr to do that work. Rashi will explain. Chutz l'tchum mutter. Outside of the tchum, it's going to be mutter. Rashi over here says, Mekavle kibolas b'soch tchum Asr litein melacha l'nachri b'kibolas. We're talking here about having a non-Jew do work, but he's a contracted worker, meaning he's not getting paid by time. He's getting paid when he finishes the job. He can really do it on his own time whenever he wants. So it's a problem. Ki avdile b'shabsa. It's a problem if that nachri does this work on Shabbos. The yodi kuli alma, because everyone's going to know what's going on. V'yamri hayom b'Shabbos yavle. Everyone's going to think that the Jew gave the non-Jew the work to do on Shabbos. So even though technically speaking, he's doing it on his own time, he's choosing to do it on Shabbos. He's not paid by the time. He's paid by completion of the job. Nevertheless, it appears as though the Jew gave him work to do on Shabbos. Rashi says, what about the fact that Beis Hillel says on the first parak of Shabbos, Litein Kalim Lekoves B'Erev Shabbos? He says it's permitted to give Kalim to a launderer on Erev Shabbos, Im Chashecha, when it's dark. In other words, you're going to have a non-Jew do your laundry for you going into Shabbos. That was permitted even within the Tchum, even though there's plenty of Jews in the area who are going to see what's going on. Rashi answers that when it comes to the laundering, so that's something that's not clear what's going on when the non-Jew is doing it. It's not clear. Therefore, there's no real cause for concern. But something, let's say that it's clear that this non-Jew is doing work on behalf of the Jew, and it's Besoch HaTchum, where all of these people can see, so then it's a problem. We are concerned because that people will be suspicious that the Jew again hired him to work on Shabbos. And the Gemara continues, Amar Papa says, Va'afilu chutz l'tchum, even if the work is being done outside the tchum, which really maybe you would say it should be permitted, lo amron ela deleka masa de mekarvel hasam. It's only permitted if there's no other city that's near that area where he's working. If there's another city nearby, people are going to see what's going on. Again, it could be a problem. Avalika masa de mekarvel hasam asr, if there's another city near the area, again, where this nachri is working outside the tchum, it would be forbidden. Rashi says, Avalika masa de mekarvel hasam osan polim nachrim asurim. Then it's a problem. Dinu yadi dahani nachri avdi le malachav yamri b'Shabbos yavlu. Again, the people of that city are going to see this nachri, and they're going to think the work was given to him on Shabbos. And the Gemara continues, Amar of Mesharshia says, even in a situation where it's outside the Tchum and there's no city nearby, still it's only going to be okay. We only said it's permitted. It's only permitted on Shabbos and Yontiv because again on Shabbos and Yontiv already outside the Tchum, people aren't really going to go there. They're not going to see what's going on. But let's say you're giving him work to do on Chol Moed, which is work that's not allowed to be done. People can travel, and they're going to see what's going on. They're going to go over there. So in that case, Asr, it's going to be forbidden again to give the Nachri the work. The Gemara continues, Marzutra Breder of Nachman, Marzutra the son of Rav Nachman, Bonu le'afadna mekabli kibolas. There were these independent contractors that they built for him a mansion. Again, this is on Shabbos, Chutz l'tchum, and they built it from outside of the Tchum. So Ikler of Safra of Rav Huna Bar Chinana v'lo alu legabe. When Rav Safra and Rav Huna Bar Chinana traveled there, they didn't want to go into that mansion because they thought it was built in an inappropriate manner. Some have the version Hunami lo al begave. Even he himself, meaning even Marzutra Breder of Nachman, wouldn't go in there for the same reason. So the Gemara says, 1 second, what was the issue? V'amar Shmuel, didn't Shmuel just say, Mekabli kibolus, if you have independent contractors, they're working on their own time. It's only a problem within the tchum. It's not a problem outside the tchum. They built this mansion for him outside of the tchum. And to that, the Gemara says, Adam chashav shani. It's different when you have somebody who's an important individual, like Marzutra Breder of Nachman. He should hold himself to a higher standard. He should be stricter. V'ika diamri, others say, Siyue saya betivna bahadayu, that the reason why it was a problem was they were not fully independent contractors. He actually assisted them with the straw that was for the bricks. Rashi over here says, Siyue have a messiah betivna shayanosin lam tevin. He gave them the straw limelacha for the work. The whole of a messiah bahadayu, since he's helping them out, also it's forbidden. Again, if they'd be totally independent contractors, that's a different story. But if he's assisting, then you have a problem. And the Gemara continues, Rav Chama shara luhu la'avungari devei reish galusa. Rav Chama allowed the avungari of the house of the Reish Galusa. Rashi will explain this. He allowed them lemevad luhu avidita b'chol demoad. He allowed them to do work on behalf of the Reish Galusa on Chol Moed. Amar, and he said, Kevan da'agar lo kashakli, since they're not taking any money, sharshu yehudaka mesharshule, there's just a certain benefit that they're getting, so therefore it's not really like labor v'les lanba, it's not a problem. Rashi over here explains, avungre misadre shulchanos, it means these are people that arrange the tables on behalf of the Reish Galusa, lemevar avidatayu im nishbar hashulchan. Rashi says it means they can do their work, meaning, let's say one of the tables breaks, so shari l'sakno, he allowed them to fix it. And the idea is because they weren't really taking wages for that, really sharshuye, revach bialma, it's just a profit, a benefit they're taking. Kedei sudasam, just enough for their meal, to kachli badayo, because they basically would eat together with the Reish Galusa. Velo kachashav malacha, so that's not really called malacha. Their whole benefit, it just was that they're participating in the meal of the Reish Galusa, and that's what they're getting for setting up these tables and fixing these tables, and therefore, again, it's not considered labor that would be prohibited on Chol HaMoed. The Gemara continues, Tana Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, Mekablan kibolas b'moed, you're allowed to arrange contracted work with a non-Jew on Chol HaMoed, la'asos la'achar hamoed, with the intention that he's going to do the work after the holiday. Uvemoed aser, but to do the work on the holiday, that would be forbidden. Klalo shel davar, and the rule is as follows. Kolshu osa omer lenachri v'osa. Anything that he himself, any kind of work that he himself can do, he's allowed to tell the non-Jew, and the non-Jew can do it. V'chol she'eno osa, but if it's something that the Jew himself is not allowed to do, eino omer lenachri v'osa. He can't tell the non-Jew to do that work on Chol HaMoed. Tanya idach, we learned in another brayso, mekablan kibolas b'moed, la'asos la'achar hamoed. Again, you're allowed to arrange with a non-Jew contracted work on Chol HaMoed in order that the work be done after the moed, after the holiday. Uvilvad shelo yimdod v'shelo yishkol v'shelo yimna, as long as he doesn't measure, weigh, or count kederach shu osa b'chol, in the same way that he does on the weekdays. In other words, when he's preparing for the work, he can't measure and weigh and count things in the same way he would do on a normal day. And the Gemara continues, Tana Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, Ein marviin behema b'cholo shel moed, you're not allowed to breed animals on Chol HaMoed. Breeding the animals is also considered a kind of labor, a kind of work, and it's prohibited on a Chol HaMoed. Kayotze bo, similar to this, Ein marviin b'bechor, you're not allowed to breed a bechor, a firstborn animal, because you're not allowed to work a firstborn animal either, and that's at all times, whether Chol HaMoed or not. V'lo b'fsule hamukdashin, and similarly, let's say you have a carbon that became puzzle, also there, that animal, it's prohibited to work that animal, and therefore it's going to be prohibited to breed that animal as well. And the Gemara continues, Tanya idach, we learned in another brayso, Ein marviin behema b'cholo shel moed, again, you're not allowed to breed an animal on Chol HaMoed. Rav Yehuda Omer, Rav Yehuda says, Chamora shetava, let's say you have a donkey, a female donkey, that's in heat, that's ready to breed, so marviin oleh zachar, you're allowed to bring upon her the male donkey, b'shvil shelo titzdanin, you're allowed to do that because otherwise she might cool off, then you're going to have a big loss of money because you're not going to be able to breed her at all. Ushar kol behemos, but when it comes to other animals, machnisin osan levakoris, all you have to do is put them into the corral, you don't have to actually do anything to breed them, and therefore it's going to be permitted. And the Gemara continues, Tana Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, Ein medairin lo b'shabbosos v'lo b'yomim tovim v'lo b'chol shel moed. What it means to say is you're not allowed to take the animals and guide them into a particular field in order to fertilize that field. You're not allowed to do that on Shabbos or Yontiv and Chol HaMoed. V'imbo me'alein mutter. Now, if the animals happen to come into your field on their own, you didn't guide them there on Shabbos, Yontiv, or Chol HaMoed, it's mutter to leave them there to allow them to fertilize the field. Ve'ein mesayin osan, you're also not allowed to assist in this process in terms of getting them to fertilize the field. Ve'ein mosrin lahem shomer lenares sonim, and you can't give for them or hire for them a shomer or a shepherd in order to guide them in the various places. We'll see Rashi. Rashi has a little further explanation. The Brisa continues, Haya schir Shabbos, schir Chodesh, schir Shana, schir Shavua. Now let's say you have non-Jews, and they're hired not to work particularly for Shabbos, but they're hired to work for the whole week, or they're hired to work for the month, for the year, or for, let's say, the Shavua, means the Shemitah cycle. So now the question in this particular case is, now it might become more mutter for them to do their work on Shabbos because they're just choosing to do the work on Shabbos. They're not hired particularly for Shabbos. So in that case, Messiah and Osan, you are allowed to assist them. And again, we'll see Rashi over here that Messiah and Osan is going specifically and only on Chol HaMoed. Umosrin lahem shomer lenares sonim, and you're also allowed to give them a shomer, a shepherd, to help out. Also over here, it seems to be that it's going only on the case of Chol HaMoed. We're going to take a look at Rashi and the Gra as well. And Rebbe Yomer, Rebbe says, B'Shabbos b'tova, on Shabbos you can assist as a favor. B'Yontiv b'mezonos, on Yontiv it can be for food. And B'Moed b'schar, for Chol HaMoed it can even be for wages. Again, we're going to take a look at Rashi and the Gra over here to see exactly what Rebbe is going on. Amar Rav Yosef says, Hilchasa kaRebbe, the halacha is like Rebbe. And Rashi over here explains, Medairin first, Medairin means machnisin behemel l'sada kadeshi yotziu zevel umezavlen hasada. Medairin means you're bringing an animal into a field in order that it should fertilize that field. And again, you're not permitted to do that with your fields on Shabbos, Yontiv, and Chol HaMoed. Then it said, Ein Messiah no son. You're not allowed to, let's say the animals are coming on their own. That's fine, but you can't assist the animals. Meaning, Ein Messiah no son, lebehema lavo basada. You can't assist the animals to come into the field. Rashi gives another possible explanation. Oim nachrim heim. Let's say the situation is you have non-Jews. And again, they're bringing them in on their own. Ein Messiah lahem. You can't give any support. You can't help out. La'asiyan mimakom lamakom. You can't help them, let's say, make the animals go from one place to another place. Kadesha tezavel kol hasada afilu bevoyin meyatzman. In order that the entire field should be fertilized, even if they're coming on their own, they're not doing it because you're instructing them. Still, to give them any assistance is a problem. Lenar, it also said you're not allowed to hire for them. You're not allowed to hire for them a shomer, or give for them a shomer, a shepherd, in order lishmor kagonim nachrim hem. Let's say you want to have a the way that Rashi understands over here is that they're protecting the shepherds are watching, guarding over the animals. You can't do that. Let's say you have non-Jews handling the animals, and you want to have someone to watch over. Not allowed to do that as well. Sechir Shabbos, then the second part of the Brisa said, if you have anyways non-Jews that are hired for the whole week, Shesachru kol hashavua l'dayer sadeh, they were hired already to fertilize the field the entire week, or Shavua, the whole Shemitah cycle, Rashi says. So in that situation, Mesayin ke'ilu shel nachrimhu. So in that case, again, since the nachrim really are choosing on their own to do that work on Shabbos, it's not really that they were hired for Shabbos, so then you're allowed to help out. Well, we'll see it's not really for Shabbos. Rashi's going to say this is specifically talking about Chol HaMoed. Rashi says, Hachi garsinan va'osa nachri b'Shabbos v'yantiv. Again, if you have these non-Jews who are hired for the whole week or month or a year or Shemitah cycle, they can do the work on Shabbos and Yontiv. You're not supposed to assist there. U'mesayin b'moed, but you could assist them on Chol HaMoed. To lo tarach melacha, because it's not really a tircha. It's not a melacha that involves tircha. That's why in Chol HaMoed you're allowed to assist. Kolomar yecholin l'saya la'oso sachir l'dayer. You're allowed to assist that particular hired worker in terms of fertilizing the field. And then finally we had umosrin lo roa echad l'nar tzono. You're also allowed to give over a shomer shemedairin osa hoel ve'eno sachir l'Shabbos mamish. Again, you're allowed to give a shomer over to watch the sheep. Those sheep that are being used to fertilize, that's not a problem in this particular case, because again, they're not being hired for Shabbos mamish, they're being hired for a longer period of time. Rashi seems to understand that Mosrin lo roa is not only going on Chol HaMoed, it seems to be even for Shabbos. That's what he says. Hoel ve'eno sachir l'Shabbos mamish. And then the last line was Rebbe Omer. Rebbe says b'Shabbos b'tova, means to say as follows: Imrotza shum adam l'saya la'oso sachir. Let's say a person wants to help out a person who's hired b'tova, so just do it as a favor. Osa, he's allowed to do that as a favor. Kolomar b'chinam v'lo b'schar, meaning do it for free and not for any wages. We'll take a look at the Gra over here. The Gra says sachir shavua mesayin osan nira be'enai b'moed. Again, like we mentioned, like Rashi seems to say as well, when we're talking about somebody who's hired for an extended period of time, a non-Jew, when we say you're allowed to assist that non-Jew, that's only on Chol HaMoed. That does not mean to say you're allowed to assist on Shabbos and Yontiv. Now, Rashi happens to, the Gra rather, takes out v'osa nachar v'Shabbos v'Yontiv totally. Agrees with what Rashi says that the assistance is only on Chol HaMoed, but takes out that line that Rashi has over here, v'osa nachar v'Shabbos v'Yontiv. So that line, the Gra takes out. Then going on Rebbe Omer b'Shabbos b'tov, it's not clear what Rebbe's talking about. Rebbe talks about the fact that on Shabbos you can assist just as a favor. On Yontiv you could do it in exchange for food. On Chol HaMoed you could do it for wages. But what's the case? Are we talking about the Sachir Shabbos? Are we talking about just a regular non-Jew? So the Gra says Nira be'enai perish dekoya reisha. This is actually going. This last line of Rebbe is going on the first part of the Brisa. Be'eno Sachir Shabbos. We're talking about a situation where he's not hired for the whole week. Ubo me'alehen. The case actually is they just come on their own. You have them coming on their own. They're not hired. They happen to be doing this. So then mutter b'moed, that's going to be mutter on Chol HaMoed. Afilu nosen lo schar achar kach. The way the Gra understands is on Chol HaMoed, you can even pay them after. They came on Chol HaMoed on their own. They're fertilizing the field, and then you want to give them some payment afterwards. That's going to be okay. But on Shabbos, it just has to be betova. It just has to be as a favor. And on Yontiv, again, it can be in exchange for mezonos. Uveseifa, and then the Gra says, now in the Seif of the Brisa, Sechir Shabbos, when it talks about, again, the non-Jew is hired for the whole week. So in that case, Mesayin dafka b'moed levad. This is what the Gra said before, also what Rashi said. The Mesayin is only on Chol HaMoed. Umosrin lo shomer lenar af beschar. And the Gra also says, in that case, talking about the Seifa, you're allowed to give a shomer, and the shomer can go and protect or guide, even beschar, even for wages in that case, you can even pay for that. And the Gra points out, Aval Harambam Meforesh Asefa. The Rambam actually explains that Rebbe is not going on the Reisha, but is going on the Seifa. On the case of the Sechir Shabbos, Sechir Chodesh, etc., Lachein Hishmit Shabbos v'Yontiv. And for that reason, actually, he takes out Shabbos and Yontiv entirely from that last line. Why? The Svirale Devohem, because the Rambam holds that on those particular days, B'cholin Yinasr. It's always going to be Asr in that case. Shabbos and Yontiv is going to be a problem. Uvemoed, and when it comes to Chol HaMoed, Af Lischor Mutter, even when you're going to be hiring, it's going to be mutter. Even if you're going to be paying the person, it's going to be mutter. What the Gra is referring to over here is that if you look in the Rambam doesn't mention at all the halacha b'Shabbos, b'Tova, or b'Yontiv, b'Mizonos. He only mentions b'Moed b'Schar. Therefore, it seems that the Rambam didn't have this text of b'Shabbos, b'Tova, b'Yontiv, b'Mizonos. The Rambam simply learns that in the case of a Schir Shabbos, Schir Chodesh, etc., the halacha is you're allowed to pay in that situation if it's Chol HaMoed. The Gemara continues with the Mishnah, V'chein mi shehaya yeno b'soch habor. Similarly, let's say somebody's wine is within the pit. This is talking about the pit by the wine press. V'iru avel, and once again he becomes an avel. As we said before, something is happening. In this case, he becomes, let's say, an avel, and now he can't finish the malacha. Or let's say it's going into the holiday, or ones o sheitu, and again, some kind of accident happens, he doesn't finish it, and now he's holding on Chol HaMoed, or his workers mislead him, and again, now he's holding on Chol HaMoed. So what can he do? Is he allowed to finish this work on Chol HaMoed or not? So again, it's going to be a machlokas between Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Yehuda. Zoleh v'gomer v'gof kedarko div Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi says he can finish up the whole process in the normal fashion. Rabbi Yehuda Omer osalo limudim b'shvil shelo yachmitz. Rabbi Yehuda says he can't. He can construct some wooden panels in order that things shouldn't go sour, but he cannot finish up the process as usual. And Rashi over here explains, B'soch habor shelifnei hagas, we're talking about the pit in front of the wine press, oso kli shayayin nofel bo min hagas, kari bo. When it goes from the wine press, it collects into the bore. So again, Rabbi Yossi says, Zoleh v'gomer kedarko, kolomar meriko so b'chavis, v'gof ha'chavis b'megufa gemura. He's allowed to pour it into a barrel, seal the barrel in the normal fashion. He can finish in the normal fashion. Rabbi Yehuda says, no, oso lo limudim eno yachol log of kedarko. He can't do the normal way. Ela sheyach beim hainu limudin b'shvil shelo yachmitz, shem eno sosmo machmitz. Again, he's got to make these limud and these kind of panels that he uses in order that it shouldn't go sour, but he can't finish it in the normal fashion. And the Gemara says with tzricha we need both mishnahs. In other words, we said the same exact halacha by olives, and now we said it by wine. The iash minan kamaisa, because if we only had the first case, meaning by the olives, by hikam Rabbi Yossi mishum demishcha nafish pseide. So there Rabbi Yossi's lenient because by the olive oil, that's a great loss of money. Aval chamra, when it comes to the wine, the lo nafish pseide, which is not as much of a loss of money, maybe he'd admit to Rabbi Yehuda and he'd be strict. If we only had this last Mishnah by the wine, by hikam Rabbi Yehuda, maybe only over there Rabbi Yehuda is strict because it's not as expensive. But when it comes to olives, maybe he'd admit to Rabbi Yossi you can be more lenient. So tzricha, we need both cases. Rashi over here says, the mishcho de chamra, talking about the olive oil and the wine. Rabbi Yossi Omer Zolef, even though it seems to be the same machlokas, by he reisha de masnisin, come Rabbi Yossi Zolef kedarko de mishcha yakir, v'ikop sedi yasera. Maybe Rabbi Yossi was only lenient by the olives because it's very expensive. Modele Rabbi Yehuda deno Zolef v'gaf mamish ala osa limudim arai. Again, maybe in our case he would admit to Rabbi Yehuda that you're not allowed to do the regular normal process of sealing the barrels. You have to make these limudim. You have to do it in the more temporary fashion. And again, that's why we need both mishnayos, because the case of the olives and the case of the wine is different. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rav Yitzchak bar Abba, Rav Yitzchak bar Abba says, Man Tana, who is the Tana that says, Shinoi b'moed b'davar ha'avid, that when it comes to something that represents a loss of money on Chol HaMoed, you also have to do it with a Shinoi, Delo ka Rabbi Yossi, that would not follow Rabbi Yossi, because Rabbi Yossi says, you don't even need a Shinoi. And the Gemara says, Amar Rav Yosef says, Halacha ka Rabbi Yossi. The halacha is like Rabbi Yossi. And the Gemara continues, Boy minei Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, they asked Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak the following question, are you allowed to seal up a barrel of beer on Chol HaMoed? Amar Lahu, he said to them, Sinai is a reference to Rav Yosef. Sinai Omar. Rav Yosef said, Halachik Rav Yossi, the halacha is like Rav Yossi. Again, you're allowed to be lenient, just like you're allowed to be lenient by wine, you're allowed to be lenient by beer. Gemara says, Amor Damar Rabbi Yossi b'chamra. No, maybe we should just say that Rabbi Yossi said it by wine. B'shichra miyamar, did he say so by beer? How do you know you can be that lenient? And so the Gemara says, Chamra taimamai. Why is it that we're lenient by wine? Mishum de nafish pseide, because it represents a big loss of money. Shichra nami isba pseide. So too when it comes to beer, if you don't properly seal the barrel, that can be a loss of money. And the Gemara brings a proof. The Amar Abaya, because Abaya said, Amrali aim, my mother said to me, Barshis soy v'shaya mi bartamni v'lo shaya. It's better that you have 6 saw and in a barrel that's sealed properly by beer than it is to have 8 saw and it's not sealed properly. It's going to be more of a problem when you don't seal it properly. It's going to be a loss of money. So again, you see the importance of sealing up the barrel of beer properly. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rav Chama bar Gurya Amar Rav. Rav Chama bar Gurya says in the name of Rav, Hilchas Moed Hilchas Kusim. When it comes to the halachas of Chol Moed, it's similar to the halachas regarding the Kusim. Bahalacha, in terms of halacha, Rashi over here explains, Hilchas Kusim da'amrinon hechad da'achzik achzik, hechad lo achzik lo achzik. When it comes to the Kusim, we say, if we know they're doing a certain particular mitzvah properly, we assume they're doing it. If we don't know for sure, then we don't. In other words, you can't extrapolate from one to the other. So he's saying the same thing is really true when it comes to Chol Moed. You can't extrapolate one halacha to the other. What we know in one place might only be in that place. It might not apply somewhere else. And the Gemara now says, Lamai Hilchasa. So what are you referring to practically in terms of halacha? Amar Rav Daniel bar Katina, so Rav Daniel bar Katina says, Lomar sheina kuros. Again, like we just said, it means to say that it's like barren. In other words, again, you can only learn that halacha itself. You can get nothing out beyond the halacha itself. Rashi says, akuros, ki isha akara she'ein la'adam mimena pri alagufa. It's like a woman who's barren, so you only have her. You don't have any fruit from her. It's the same idea over here. This is an area of halacha that is barren. You can't learn out one thing from the other. Ve'ein lamedos zumizu. You can't learn one from the other, as Rashi over here says. De'ema kashem shezum muteres kach zum muteres. You can't say, well, just like it's mutter here, it's mutter there. Kemo b'kusim. That's exactly what we find by the kusim also. V'lo amrinun ki'echi demachzik b'hai machzik b'hai. We don't say, well, since we have a chazaka, they do it this way over here, so they do it this way over here. Elalo yalfi hani mihani. We can't say that. We can't learn one from the other. And the Gemara now says further, Diamar Shmuel, because Shmuel says, Zovsin kuzasa, vein zovsin chavisa. Shmuel says you're allowed to seal up with pitch. Let's say you have a jug, but you're not allowed to seal up a barrel. And Rav Dimi min Hardai said the opposite. He said, Zovsin chavisa, you're allowed to seal up the barrel, vein zovsin kuzasa. You're not allowed to seal up the jug. And what's the difference between them? Mar chayesh l'pseida, one is more concerned for the loss of money. Umar chayesh l'tircha, the other is more concerned that you're going to do a kind of a work that is a burden on Chol Moed. Rashi over here says, Mar da'amar zovsin chavisa, the one who says you can seal up a barrel, chayesh l'pseida, chavisa ika pseida yasera. If you don't seal a barrel properly, there's a big loss of money. He's concerned with the loss. He allows you to do that on Chol Moed. Ilo zavsi lamisham de nafish yena. There's a lot of wine there. If you don't seal it up, it's going to be a problem. Uvekuzasa by a jug, which is smaller, like a pseida yasera, there's not a big loss. Kuza's kli katan. Again, kuza is like a small jug. And Mar Damar Zovsin Lakuza Dechayish L'Tirchi Yaseir, the one who says you can seal up the smaller thing because he doesn't want you to do a lot of work. Uvekuza Leka Tirchi Yaseir, a small kli is not a big deal to do. It's not a big tircha. Uvechavisa Ika Tirchi Yaseir, by a chavisa, by a barrel, that's a tircha, so he doesn't want you to do a tircha. So that's the idea. Again, you can't necessarily extrapolate one to the other. Here you have a situation where it's only going to be permitted by one and not the other. And the Gemara continues, Amar Abaya, Abaya says, Naktinan Hilchas Moed Kilchas Shabbos. We hold that when it comes to the halachas of Chol Moed, they are similar to the halachas of Shabbos in the following respects. We'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Yud Beis Amud Beis.